Hello, everyone, and welcome back to RHAP's coverage of the summit. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I've, of course, joined by Chappell. How you doing, Chappell?
Hey, I'm good. I am very excited to talk to you about this episode of the Summit, especially on our new website here. We know the summit.com, Taran. We're here officially now. So we got a lot of space to talk about this show.
Listen, there's a whole website dedicated to it. If you don't tell all of your friends to listen to this podcast, it's kind of like you're polluting the internet, I think.
It feels like it, right?
Yeah,
That's the
something like
that's the
that.
thing. Yeah, that's the
We
thing.
need to fill this space, make use of it.
And we got a lot of mountain to cover and so little time, Taran. So I'm very excited to have this moment to talk to you about episode 3.
Yes. Littlefinger once said that chaos was a ladder. But this episode wasn't that chaotic.
You gotta chop the ladder. I just feel like this is our moment to talk to production. Okay, we had a good, strong episode 2 where we lean into murder. Murder, throwing people off the side of a mountain, making these people backstab each other in the most gruesome way possible. And this time, you had the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever, and you just didn't lean into it. So I think next time, you gotta burn the ladder. You gotta cut it down. You gotta shake it or something. The helicopter has to get closer. Give me more intrigue as to, like, how dangerous this game could be if these people's lives were really in danger.
Yeah, Nick intentionally went up the ladder last, and he needed to be punished for that. After
Agreed.
what happened to Bo.
After you saw what happened to Bo, you volunteered to go last. I don't care how afraid of heights I am. I'm not going to let somebody chop me off of the side of a mountain. That's just not going to happen. It would have had to be me and 3 other people falling to our deaths because there was no way I would have gone last, and not by myself. So he should have been punished. I think there has to be a little bit of, intrigue behind. Are you going to do something for self-preservation, or are you just going to allow the game to move on and just kind of go through the motions? I think we missed an opportunity here with Nick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The ultimately, like, the most dangerous thing on this ladder was that the mountain's keeper showed up just to scare him a little.
Yeah, but I think it still didn't hit the same. Like when Jeff was on that bridge, I was like, okay, this is incredibly dangerous. Like, don't get me wrong, they're all harnessed in, but let's suspend our imagination just a little bit and say, all right, cool, bet. We're going to believe that he could fall off of this bridge, which he could, and potentially die. But it felt like the helicopter was so much closer. You could see it moving, like you could see him moving around. You could feel see the wind from the propellers. This time it kind of felt like, oh, okay. The mountain's keeper just want a close-up look at Nick climbing the mountain. And I guess it doesn't take much for Nick because he was telling us how afraid of heights he is. I just don't really buy it considering you're climbing a mountain. So, I guess.
Yeah. I gotta say, Chappelle, the ladder was a little disappointing. I think the episode in general, it was fine.
It was
Third
fine.
episode was fine. I mean, honestly, last time I was saying, like, I don't know how a show like this can sustain this many episodes at 90 minutes. And I was hopeful, but I feel like this is an episode where I definitely felt the length a bit. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what we're doing in the future, but, like, I need a little more action going on.
Gotta spice it up. Gotta add some more boats or something like that. I think they're letting the mountain be a large part of the show, including the runtime. We see a lot of the climbing. A lot of people like, oh, the rocks are unstable. I'm tired. I'm from the city. I don't do this kind of things. Okay, we're 3 episodes in. We get it. Some of you aren't equipped to climb a mountain. Now let's get to the nitty gritty. I think that maybe if you're a strategy person, the social game of this, the elimination that we get here that might have been shocking to some people, but definitely shocking to at least one person for sure. Maybe that could have been more entertaining as well. Maybe they could have given us a little bit more of the politicking, the left and right, but I thought they did that part well. I just think there's a lot of, wilderness and terrain that they want to make sure that we understand, and it's taking maybe like 20 to 30 minutes too long.
Yeah, I feel like what we talked about last time is really pressing here, where it's like, I still just don't know that the show knows what it wants to be, because last episode, the fun part was watching them murder Bo.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this episode, it was the social strategy element. But the problem is that like these are one section of a 90-minute episode, and the other stuff is not always hitting. And like there was some, like when who was it? The first woman to go up was climbing the ladder. Was it
Becky Lee
Amy?
didn't go first, did she? Yeah, I think it was
No.
Amy. Yeah, I think it was Amy who probably went first.
And she was like struggling up the ladder. It was like there was something there of like, oh yeah, she's not going to give up. She's carrying her weight, so on and so forth. But then it was like every other person going up the ladder.
Yeah, there's only so much of like are they gonna make it? Okay, they made it. Are they gonna make it? Okay, they made it. Are they gonna after a few, we're like, okay, yada yada, a couple of these people. We don't have to see them all struggle.
I saw Amy go up like 6 rungs and starting to struggle. And I was like, oh, there's no shot. She can't do this. Then she fell and just stayed there and got back in the same spot and kept going. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like,
and from that point forward, it was like there's no actual. I mean, listen, it's still challenging. Like I don't want to make light of this. It's still scary. It's still hard. An unstable rope ladder like that, it's a difficult thing, especially if you don't know how to climb it. But like if you get to basically just sit back and rest on the rope,
yeah,
it's a lot easier.
It takes a lot of suspense out of it as well. Because when Amy fell, I was like, oh no, now she's got to go back to the bottom. That'd be crazy. And I was like, oh, never mind. And I think that for the show, they need these people to be able to move through these challenges at some pace, even if it's extremely slow. So they're just like, okay, you fell, get your act together and get back up there. This is more, it feels to me like this is more about conquering the actual fear of the climb than, what it takes to actually do the climb. Because they're willing to sit there all day. Yeah, for sure.
Which is fair until you have to watch 12 people do it over and over.
Yeah, you got to spice this up a little bit. You have to because like I said, we were invested until she fell and we realized, oh, there's no penalty to falling. So if you fall, you just hang there and then get it together. There's even a moment when Taran is at the top of the rope, and I think we even get a cliffhanger like for a commercial break where he's
literal.
like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Yeah, he's hanging off the side of a cliff. He's like, I can't do it. I'm afraid. And he's like 3 rungs away from being done. And I'm thinking, well, you can't go back down. So I'm not terrified that he's not going to make it. I think at this point, it's as afraid as you are, you either going to sit there or you're going to go up. There's no going down. It's like, a very long way to the ground. So yeah, I think for me, that part of the challenge really didn't work.
I will say, because I will try to inject as much of any kind of knowledge I have into this as much as possible. But I like that is to me the scariest part of climbing outside or even like inside if you're climbing over the edge of a wall to get on top of something. That is like the scariest part and I don't even know why. I couldn't even tell you why, but it's like because you're changing your like angle and so like it feels like if you slip like you'd fall all the way back, whereas if you're standing straight up you feel like you're more stable, I think. But like I totally got it when he was up, especially because he couldn't grip the ladder very well. Like that is that's the toughest part.
It's like you're grasping at something you can't see as well, because like it's over the cliff. So it's like I have to just trust that I have the right grip on this and that like I can't see my feet anymore and I can't see my hands. So it's just like a blind pool and just like, all right, hope for the best. I would definitely be terrified of this. I commend these people of being, so brave to go do this because I know I couldn't. Even the time you and I went climbing, the height is what got me. It's like, okay, physically, yeah, I've gotten up here, but it's not even, I wasn't even that high up, Taran. It just felt like my feet were off the ground too long, so I didn't love that. I think you have that on video somewhere.
Yeah, it's the funny part is like if you film yourself climbing, especially like the first couple of times you go and you're like, I don't know, guys, it's too high. And then you see the video and you're like 2 feet off the ground.
My feet had left the ground a lot. It's just that my body was still in the same spot. I could have reached up and jumped and touched where I was, like where my hands were, but I wasn't used to my feet not having, the ground beneath it. So I commend all these people. There's no way I could have done this.
Yeah. So so that was the latter thing for the most part. But like, okay, I think one part of this episode that was really noticeable to me was that, you know, obviously a huge part of this show is that we're doing a lot of hiking. We're doing a lot of
Mm-hmm.
walking. And there's a lot of talk about like these people are slowing us down. We're the fast ones. Oh, this is really hard. And it's but we're getting just like montages, like quick little montages of all the oh man, that was a long walk. That one was hard. And it's just not very interesting, I think, these
Mm-hmm.
sections, which I you might say it's walking. How could it be interesting, right? And my challenge to that would be that I'm a watcher of the parkour group Storer on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And they have done a couple of challenges by this guy, Geo Wizard, which are called straight line challenges, where
Mm-hmm.
basically you are challenged to just walk in a straight line, like geographically. And that
Right.
means going over like really
Whatever's
annoying
in your way.
terrain, sometimes
Yeah.
trespassing through things like and these are like sometimes 42-part 40-minute videos each that are just a group of guys walking in a straight line and
Mm-hmm.
I'm enthralled. I love these videos. They're so much fun because of all the different little like challenges that they run into. Like, oh, this is a field of really uneven ground, and somebody just twisted their ankle, and it's really tough. And oh, now we have to cross this stream, and we're trying not to get wet. And we gotta like throw the bags over because, and it's like all these little things like that actually make the journey fun. I think could
Mm-hmm.
be a part of this show, considering the journey is such a huge part of it. But instead, we're just watching a montage of some walking most of the time.
Yeah, and those parkour people have been training to get over these obstacles. That's kind of their thing. These people, like Miss Patty here, she like, look, I'm just happy to be out here. So it's like you put too many obstacles in their way, it's not going to end well. And then it seems like if you do handle the obstacles too well, you can put a target on your back somehow. So there's that too. But I totally agree. I think that because they're hiking, it's kind of just you're just waiting on them to get through the brush, get over these rocks, but there are no real huge obstacles that you would think like, oh, how are they going to get over this one thing? Every time we have a huge obstacle, it's a bridge or a ladder or something like that. I think that yeah, you could really spice this up. I don't know. They need a different mountain for next season, or maybe they need to just add some maybe like some man-made obstacles out there that they could use, like some mini challenges on the way to these checkpoints. I think that could spice things up too.
I just feel like I think it also just comes down to the storytelling and like
Mm-hmm.
if the mountain is going to be a huge if the actual hike and the speed of the hike is going to be such a huge part of the storytelling, I need to feel it rather than just be told that it exists, right?
Yeah.
And so I want like especially when we have 90 minutes, I want to like understand and feel the length of this and the challenge of actually just walking through and instead of just being told like, ah, man, it sucks, I'm hungry. Like I want to feel like I get why they're so hungry. And I get that I'm kind of asking for a lot there, but like this, it is the premise of the show. So
Mhm.
personally, I want a little bit more of that if we're going to spend so much time on it anyway, is kind of my critique.
This is the mega super aggro crag now, Taran, and you have ice falling down. You got boulders rolling down. You got all these like sparks flying. Make this a production, really. I think that you can lean into a lot of the stuff that we have on the mountain and make it like you said, make us feel like okay, I'm there. This does feel like I'm watching a bunch of people hike. Maybe even lean into some of the injuries they might be sustaining. This has been 3 episodes. It's been what 3 days as well, and I know their feet hurt, all that kind of stuff. Show us some blistering. Show us, their fingers are, I want to know that these people are out here struggling and not just walking in a straight line.
I think an example of this for me is the one of the big parts of this episode, which
Mm.
is that they're doing their hike, and it's the mountain's keeper. Uh,
Yes.
shows up, drops a bag, and they. I kind of liked this in theory that like they dropped the bag way far away, and
Hmm.
theoretically, I think there should have been an advantage in there, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to incentivize them in the future to race out to this bag to see who gets there
Mm-hmm.
first and to get it themselves. Because they didn't, they were like, oh, well, we'll go 3 people. We'll bring it back before we open it up. And then there was nothing good in it. Like if there needed to be something good in it, like here's $5,000 just for you.
Right. Just because you came and got it.
And then
Exactly.
like make Becky Lee feel like, oh man, I kind of wish I had opened it. So that
Yeah.
next time there's a little bit of tension,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they go and they get it. This was one of my favorite parts of the episode. This is a moment for strategy.
Yes.
They're working on Rob, they're flipping Rob, and back at the other group, they're trying to like having their own conversations. And it's part of like this bigger strategic portion of the episode that I did think was good, that I'm sure we'll talk about. They come back. The decision is that the Mountain's Keeper will take the 2 slowest people to the next bivy camp for them so that they can speed up, but they have to give up food for the night. First of all, did they not look inside the helicopter? Do they not know now
Who the Mountain
the
Keeper?
identity of the Mountain's Keeper?
They made them hang off of the helicopter like this was some Max
I
Payne
think that
game.
was part of keeping them away from seeing
Yeah.
the true identity.
They said, "Don't turn around. Don't turn around. Just latch yourself on here. Don't,
If you turn around, you will turn to stone.
we will push you off of this helicopter. Do not play with me. I will turn this thing around." Yeah.
You saw what I did to Bo.
Don't let it happen. You don't want to be Bo in this situation. I thought it was cool. I really did. And like you said, the opportunity they had to strategize prior to that, because that long walk to go get this advantage, but then the walk back gives them time to really start working on people. But then also you have that decision. Do you want people to go and take this advantage? Who do you want to send? And then are you willing to sacrifice your food to do that? And I thought, yeah, this is where Jeff, his game has been on the rocks, for a long time. At this point, I think this was one of the moments where Jeff, he's gonna watch this back and think, oh yeah, I should have done this differently. This is not good. This was a bad showing for Jeff.
Yeah, and so I think for me, like I like this idea and I like the dilemma of like food versus sending 2 people and which 2 people, and then they go and now you're without food, and what kind of things does this do to the social dynamic? But in terms of like the actual impact, when I watched this show, and you might disagree, but I didn't feel like losing food felt like a huge deal. Like they decided to not have food and then they were like, "Oh, I'm hungry." And then like 5 minutes later they were just doing their regular thing afterward, and it was like fine.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it had a meaningful impact on them or the game.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of them complaining about being hungry. Like, obviously, this is taking a lot of calories, and so we do hear people saying like, "This is hard to do off of the last meal that we got." Not to mention the meals that they eat is like it feels like the backstage food you get at like a set or something like that, like the like a little buffet, finger foods. It's got little sandwiches and stuff like that. I was like, give these people some chicken, like they need to eat so they can get across this terrain. But I agree. And I think that they agreed too, because everyone's like, I'm good missing out on food. That's cool. And Jeff says, well, I'd like to eat. And I was like, Jeff, shut up. Shut up. If everybody else wants to starve, you starve too, damn it. Like, just be okay with what everybody else is doing, especially when you're standing out. So yeah, they end up saying, all right, Amy, y'all can go. Get on the helicopter. We'll go without food and we'll move faster. But this will come back to bite some people later on.
Yeah, and again, like I'm just kind of imagining a world where they're carrying the food that they need to eat.
Yes.
And in order to make this deal, they have to leave that behind.
Yeah. They gotta
And
send the food with them. You know what I'm saying? Like Amy and whoever, they gotta take the food on the helicopter. Now for the next day, y'all are just out here, freestyling it. But if had they stayed, you would have got food. I like that better.
yeah, something like that, right? Like just have like a physical, tangible thing that you have to leave behind or send away, and then it's like, okay, you're actually just going without food now, because as it stands, it's like I don't believe that they just didn't have food for 24 hours. Like that's obviously not true. They didn't act like they were starving. They must have had lunch that day, and they were just like, you just have to skip dinner. Like that's what it felt like to me watching the episode. And even that's like obviously annoying, especially when you're doing all this stuff. But as I said, it didn't even seem to have like a meaningful impact on their performance in the next day. So it was like, I like this like dilemma in theory, but I just need to feel the mountain. I need Jeff Probst to tell me that the mountain is the monster, and I need to feel that fear.
Yeah, well, the thing that Jeff has that this show doesn't have is that you actually see the people on Survivor foraging for food, right? They're like sharing the tiniest minnows and saying like, "Oh yeah, I guess we'll split this 8 ways." We got to see these people start hunting. Like if you don't get to eat, fine, go find your food. Now see what happens. When they have to start using their arrows and stuff like that to hit like rabbits and random squirrels, then you'll start to say, "All right, I'm not giving up food because I'm definitely not eating squirrel. Not like this."
And this is something that Survivor did very well in the early seasons of Survivor. The survival element was such a huge portion of the show, and many Survivor fans lately have lamented the fact that maybe even not lately, but they used to lament the fact that the survival element has not been a focus of the show, because Survivor often has the same problem where like intellectually that they're starving out there,
You're not gonna
but
kill
you
me.
don't feel it when you're watching the show like you did when you watched Borneo, because they're not spending as much time on it. But that's okay with Survivor because that's not what the show is about anymore. It's entirely about the social strategy. And that's what you come to the show for nowadays. Whereas this show, it had the social strategy, but there is still so much of the mountain and the hiking and the food and all of that, that like, if we're going to spend that time, I just want to feel it more. And I'll stop saying the same thing at this point, but that's how I felt about it.
Don't be afraid to starve these people. On Survivor, they starve them. Like it's a social strategy game, but those people are not eating. They take their flint. They punish them when they don't do things the correct way. Start punishing these people. Okay, we're on a mountain. There's some social strategy. They have to climb some stuff. Cool. But also, if you don't get to this point, from this point in whatever time, not only do you have to sleep on the ground, but we're taking something from you. Maybe we'll take a a bag of the money away. Like you said, if the food is something that they're carrying, maybe we'll send the food on to the next checkpoint or something like that. And you got to go get it. Maybe the mountain's keeper is going to drop food in different locations. And now you have to, question, do I need to go get the food or do we keep pushing forward? I want them to make game time decisions that can affect the strategy, because I'm thinking like if I'm somebody like Dusty, I probably got it in me to go get the food. Hey, the food's far, but I got to eat. I got a lot of calories that I'm burning. I need to go. And then if you're everybody else, you can say, okay, well, Dusty's doing that. Let's strategize against him. And then that can incentivize Dusty to say, well, maybe I don't want to be the one to go get the food. We don't need food. Let's starve. And then you just try to outlast some of the people who don't have the food. I think there's so much potential here, based on what you're talking about, that it's still early on. We're 3 episodes in. Maybe they're just letting them get their feet wet. They're starting off like this, and then as we weed out some of the I won't say weaker individuals, because they're definitely just voting out things. They're using their own strategies to place their votes. But now that they've kind of gotten warmed up, they kind of got a system for how they're doing things. Let's shake the table. You know what I'm saying? Let's put them to the test and see. Okay, now we're in the big leagues. Now what do you do? And I think that could be very entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is I think this is more a problem of storytelling than it is actually like needing to starve people, because
Just
I
starve
don't
them
think Chappelle wants to starve them, and
and push them off
that's fair.
mountains. Yeah.
I think it's fine to be like, we at dinner and that sucks, as long as you tell that story correctly. That can be meaningful and impactful. But I feel like that's where for me the failure is. But on the other hand, you could just starve them.
Yeah, just starve. It's cool.
Yeah.
It'll be all right. They're not gonna die. We're not gonna let y'all die. Stop it.
So this episode to me felt like the Becky Lee episode.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
last week I talked about how like Becky Lee is the one I'm watching out for, and then it happened way faster than I thought. That like Becky Lee is all of a sudden like the mastermind of the season. It's like, oh, this is a little early for this.
That's a good point. I mean, I think Shweta thought that the first episode she was the mastermind of the season, and she got her head chopped off very quickly by Becky Lee. And so Becky Lee gets last episode's crown probably, and then she gets this one too. She has emerged as somebody who is a good storyteller, but also very strategic, and she's physically capable of doing a lot of this stuff. She seems like she's socially in a good spot. I would wonder that maybe 3 episodes in, it's not great to be this far out in front, but I don't know, Taran. This is a good a good year for what construction site managers who happen to be women.
Yeah,
They go far in these games.
they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's like, listen, I did this, I got out Shveta, and now it's time for me to get out Jeff. And so she pulls in Nick, and on their way to the bag that's dropped off by the mountains keeper, they talk to Robert, and they're like, Robert, you're sitting on the fence, we're gonna need you to pick a side. And like, this is where the show, I think, shines, because the visual of this, like the three of them walking on this mountain, and it's like, it's us two now, like crowding you in, and it's just like, like this could be a scene from The Walking Dead. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like we're gonna go off and grab something, and like, listen, we're gonna need your support on this one. It's like, oh, but I like them. We're gonna need you to pick a side.
Yeah.
Like, this is great. I love this.
You could be Bo. Do you want to be Bo? All right,
Exactly.
then. You come with us or potentially be Bo. I think that's a great point. Last episode I was questioning why is everybody so hell bent on getting out a physical threat this early on? But just from a number standpoint, it seems to like if they're not aligned with you, then there's a potential that you're one of the people that they're willing to leave for last, right? And you don't want to be last coming across any obstacle because you could get bowed. And I think that by getting rid of Jeff, you take that decision and that power away from Jeff and his numbers if they are ever in that spot. Now, I don't think Jeff is playing like that. I think that Jeff is going to try to keep as many people around as possible for as long as possible because he just wants to help everybody. I think Dusty has a little bit of that edge to him as well, where it's like, hey, if we can all get across this quickly, cool. If you're slow, we can slow down and get rid of you. But even the fast people are like, we don't need all the fast people, and by getting rid of Jeff, you're going to be isolating a bunch of people's numbers. And so they're telling Robert, get on board or get left behind, literally and figuratively. And Robert at first sounds like no, what now? Yeah, I don't think I want Jeff out. But very quickly he's like, I think I gotta get Jeff out. I don't think I think it's either him or me, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, this was good. Poor Jeff. He just is watching the game slip away from him and he can't do anything about it.
Yeah, this really was like, there was a lot of focus on Jeff throughout the episode. I will say, his confessional being the only one where it's pouring rain throughout the like entire episode was a little bit of a giveaway.
Yeah, I was like, why is it raining? Did it rain on anybody else? Like, why is it like, where is that? Where are you doing this interview?
At first, I thought this must mean he survives,
Right.
because
It's on next
why would they
episode.
be doing an interview in the pouring rain otherwise? But then nobody else had an interview in the pouring rain. I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Mhm.
They're
That wasn't the
doing
rain.
his
That was his tears.
post vote out interview in the pouring rain.
Yeah, that wasn't the rain. That was his tears. It's
Yeah.
like it rains because he's crying. This is not a good episode for Jeff at all. He has some allies, but the people who are anti-Jeff, they're maneuvering so aggressively. That's the thing that I was so jarred by last episode. Was like, why are y'all pushing so hard? Like, you got plenty of time to get Jeff out, but because they were pushing so hard, by the time it got to him, it didn't matter. Dennis, Becky Lee, Nick, they're all like, no, it's got to be Jeff. It's got to be Jeff. It's got to be Jeff. By the time Pumpkin runs this back to Jeff, there's nothing Jeff can do. Yeah, Jeff is like, all right, Amy, will you vote with me? Robert, anybody? Is like, yeah, the numbers don't look like they're in your favor, and nobody wants to be outside of the majority, especially when there's a public vote. People got to raise their hand and stand on their own 2 feet about these things. You can't secretly like, I'll throw you a pity vote. Pity vote can get you thrown off the mountain.
Yeah. Yeah. And that seems to, that, again, I'll say that that's one of the more disappointing angles of the social strategy portion, is this public vote, which I do think encourages this very like mob mentality style of thing, though it could pay off later, when things are a little more heated and you're like, no, guys, come on, raise your hand.
Yeah.
So we'll see about that. But yeah, this comes down to Jeff versus Dennis, and there's this scene as well where we're being, another thing I thought this episode was doing better was that I felt like we were being introduced to more of the people. I think one of the things we talked about last time was that it felt like we still didn't know a lot of these people. And so we're slowly getting to know some of these people a little bit better. And this time it was well, here's the thing. I'm still not even Jenny, I believe. We get to know Jenny and her sort of backstory as an athlete, and that was pretty cool. And then, of course, Dennis. He's gonna, he doesn't like to be vulnerable, but he gets a little vulnerable. He cries a little bit about talking about his family, and
This never hits for me. The person who like I can cry on command. Like for me, as somebody who's watched a lot of these games, I've seen a thousand seasons of Big Brother and Survivor. It never does anything for me because I think like I rarely does that like in the final tribal council, their speech was like they broke into tears and everybody believed them. Normally that person is like doing a lot in a spot where they don't have to do that much, and so it doesn't hit the same for me. But I like Dennis is going for it. He's a character, and you need villains to make a show like this work. And so he's ready to step into this role. I think the only problem is there's so many people ready to step into this role that you have to be the one doing it the best. And for me, I'm like, Dennis is cool, but Becky Lee's doing it better. I'll give her that.
exactly. Yeah, also I would say personally, from my observation watching Big Brother, especially where you're watching the live feeds, you really know these people pretty well in terms of how they operate. I would say the vast majority of time when somebody's in a confessional or even in the moment being like, yeah, I did that on purpose, they're lying.
They're lying.
They just cried. And then they're saying afterward, yeah, that was an intentional thing. Like I've seen people on the feeds who are like crying and then will look to the cameras and be like, and then go back to crying. And I still don't necessarily believe that it's not genuine cry. Like it's just, and there's nothing wrong with this, but like there's an instinct when you are crying, when you're feeling vulnerable, to want to be like, no, this is not actually a moment of vulnerability. This was all calculated. I'm doing this on purpose. But it's okay. Like it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel sad. It doesn't need to be. And I'm not saying that Dennis wasn't faking this, but man, he had some snot running down his nose.
Yeah. It was like I was very surprised when like I won't even be like I saw through his acting. I was very surprised when he decided to go with the angle like, oh yeah, no, I'm making this up. Like I could cry on command. And he's grinning. I was like, yeah, I kind of feel how you feel. Unless I see you prepping for the tears, a la a Franzo or Angela, then I really don't care. Like I like you can't tell me after the fact that that wasn't real, because who would like people would love to be like perceived as somebody who is that calculated and that mischievous that I can turn it on and turn it off, but nobody can crack me. Like I'm a strategy role. It's like, all right, you good. You can cry and still in your mind think, okay, how can I flip this to make it seem like I'm more in control of this situation? Or even how can I'm crying, but maybe I'm crying a little bit harder because I know people are watching me. I'm turning it on a little bit more.
I mean, I would genuinely respect a player more if in a confessional they were like, yeah, I broke down, but I think it might have worked for me because I think I can use it to my advantage because, it'll make me seem XYZ, or it'll, it maybe broke down some barriers, whatever the case may be. Like, because a genuine emotion is always going to be more effective than faked emotion. And so, it's, but Dennis here, listen, if he was fully faking this, then he is a very good crier. He could really, he could give some actors a challenge here with the snot performance.
Well, because it wasn't just tears, right? Like you said, it was very much snot. It was the it's like, all right, like Dennis, like if you are faking, turn it down just a little bit. Like it's like get a grip. Like I would be strategizing. Like, can Dennis handle this? Is he good? Like is he okay? Like I mean, he seemed tapped in, but now worried about his emotional state climbing the mountain. Maybe we both this guy. What do you think? So I don't know. He was leaning into it. I would say that.
Doesn't seem to, at least from what we saw, make much of a difference. As you said, it really is like Dennis is in the confessionals like, they're falling under my spell. Nick is in confessionals being like, yeah, I got him in the palm of my hand. And then Becky Lee is like, yeah, I got this.
It's just Becky Lee show. Welcome to my game. Yeah, it's a different vibe. Becky Lee, she's coming at this from the perspective of, first of all, I don't like these men discounting the women in the game. So first of all, we're gonna shut that down. Number one. Two, I need you to know, Shweta was my move. It was me. I did it. And then this is my move too. Now I'm gonna go lay low after this, but make no mistake, I'm in control. Whereas Dennis and even Nick, they're kind of taking more like a like, oh no, I'm even more under the radar than you would like to believe. Becky's like, I'm shocked that nobody sees me because I'm killing everybody. You know what I'm saying? I'm killing the challenges, I'm killing the social part. Look at me, I'm Becky Lee.
I kind of love this. Obviously it's hard to know what's really happening in a show like this, especially when you compare it to a show like Big Brother that I'm used to watching. But like, the perception that they're trying to give off is that Becky Lee is essentially using the more overtly sketchy, shady, like game players of like Dennis and Nick, who are more outwardly like, mischievous, and like, I'm playing this game really hard. Like, people think Dennis is playing really hard because he got caught targeting Jeff and also trying to be Jeff's best friend. And Nick is like a salesman, and he's like you kind of see that Nick is doing some things. Becky Lee is also that person, but has the like perception, gives off, like, on the exterior at least, that she's trying to do this, of like, oh, but I'm also just here, just like to prove myself and to play hard and to work hard. And I think also allow people like Nick and Dennis to feel like it's them doing the things, because that benefits her. And so it's an interesting way to play for a player like Becky Lee that, you don't often see in these games. And so I'm very curious to see how much success she can find with it, especially when it comes down to it. Like, she's saying straight up, like, I want to use Dennis as a shield. As long as people are going after Dennis and blaming him for all of the stuff I'm doing, that's great for me. He'll take the hit for it.
And Dennis also has identified Becky Lee as a threat. She's telling us nobody sees me, but he does say, yeah, I think Becky Lee's a threat, but I want to be on her side, which could be dangerous for, him later on, because if she doesn't want him at her side, he could be having a problem moving forward. It's very fun to watch. I would love to see if any of it matters, because we have not been told how many slots there are at the end. Is it 2 people? Is it 5 people? We don't really know. So is Becky Lee incentivized to look at somebody like Dennis and say, yeah, you can go, or is it going to be a thing where, we're all sneaky, but it's 5 of us. We can split the money. It's cool. They got what, $870,000 before, like, with them, before cutting Jeff. They keep his money. So they're dividing that amongst what, 12 people, well, 13 people at this point. So, you want to get the numbers down, so where you have more money. But is it worth cutting some of these more nefarious players if they're not coming for you? I don't know.
Can I just say, I think I want there to be one person left at the end.
Me too. Right? Like, make them work for it. Make them fight for this. I don't want them to have been lied to. I'll put it like that. Like, if they're under the premise that, at least 2 people will make it to the end, then I think it should be that. But if they are like, if they have no clue, like, it could be 1 or it can be all of us, then I want it to be 1. I want whoever it is to have played the hardest, or outlasted everybody else. I don't necessarily need like a foot race to the to the bag, or whatever, or whoever touched the top of the summit first. I don't necessarily need that, because then, as somebody who is a slower player, it's kind of like, okay, well, how do you even win if at the end y'all 2 start at the same spot and that person is just more well equipped to beat me in that 10 out of 10? Now, is that something maybe for season 2 that you address quicker and say, do I want one of these in-game comp threats who happen to be a construction worker lady against me at the end? I don't know. She could win a bunch of challenges. Who knows? But as far as it being the first season, I want them to all know that, all right, if it's only one of us, what do I have to do to make sure that I'm the one remaining?
I just feel like a show called The Summit, if I'm picturing like an image, picture one person at the top of a mountain holding
the flag.
You know what I mean? You don't picture 5 people. That doesn't make sense. That's not the summit.
Like a family.
What I want, and you know what I want.
Yeah.
I want the person who comes in second place to be pushed off the mountain.
Right. Yeah, exactly. exactly. Like there or okay, 5 people made it to the top, but only one of you who can survive. Go. It's like, all right, we'll be back in 30 minutes. And Manu Benu's like, finish him, or he's like watching along like from the back, like Shao Kahn, like, like that's what I want.
Just imagine like you get to the top of the mountain and it's like there's this weird setup. It's like 5 different booths. You have to like you step into each one individually. You're being hooked up to a harness. You're like, wait, what is happening? And then some kind of challenge, vote, whatever. But then one by one, people just start dropping.
Yeah.
And that's how they end their that's the last you see of them on this show.
We don't get any follow-ups or anything like that. And then the last person remaining is the person, like you won the summit. Maybe it's based on like individual time or something like that. I don't know. I want them to have a reason to be doing all of this this cutthroat maneuvering that they're doing 3 episodes in. Because it's been 4 days and there've been so much like we got to get this person out. We got to get this person out. The whole time I'm like, why? What is the point? But if you tell me, nah, you have to get it down to 2 people. Manu's coming and he's about to just chop like 5 people's ropes out of nowhere. I got to make sure I'm one of those 2. What do I got to do to make sure that the odds are in my favor? I would like that a lot.
Yeah, like 5 people get to the top of the mountain. They're excited. They're like, "Oh, this must be the last. We must all have made it. Like the alliance we made together, it worked. We're here." And then they open the bag, and the mountain's keeper shows up, and the mountain's keeper is like, now you must turn on each other. Only one of you can win. Like, I don't know. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I need it. And look, there's so much you could do with this show because you have them outside. I watched Outlast on Netflix and it literally is just like, hey, just kick it out here until we get tired. And I mean, they like will have the people out there just starving, living in the wilderness, freezing. Every now and then they'll drop out some supplies, but they're like, no, figure it out amongst yourselves. And then after a month or 2, they finally say, all right, now race to the end and whoever gets there first wins. That's the whole show. I think that if you could do that with these people, like, all right, now race, now go, you got it. Whoever makes it wins. That's it. And then if I'm a slower person, I'm like, damn, I shouldn't have got rid of Jeff. Like maybe I needed him, or man, I should have got Becky Lee out. I saw the way she was climbing. Why did I think it would be okay to come to the end with her? Make the decisions make sense for the gameplay, and then make things more exciting. I like it. Compete for whoever will stand at the top of a summit. It feels like if there's a peak, there's only one person who could be at the peak.
Yeah, and that person is not going to be Jeff, despite some campaigning. Amy does fight hard to keep Jeff around, despite the fact that like she was really worried it would be her. She hears it's either Jeff or Dennis. Dennis, who lets her know. He's like, nah, don't worry. You're good. It's gonna be Jeff. And she's like, oh, thanks for telling me. Guys, we should get out Dennis.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that she thought, all right, everybody can't be feeling this way about Jeff. Like Dennis, that's wild. Jeff is our leader. He's very fast, where he's good socially with everybody. He's been helping us. She seemed like she was pretty close to Jeff. I think they sleep next to each other. So she's like, there's no way anybody would get behind Dennis on this. Dennis has to go. He's a problem here. What she didn't know is that Dennis had already done all the legwork. Becky Lee, like these people have been plotting on this man since day 2. So by the time it gets to Amy, she's like, hey, y'all, Dennis got to go, right? They're like, sure. Okay, yeah. Whatever you say. Make sure you raise your hand high when that time comes so that we know that you want to protect Jeff, just in case we need to cut somebody's rope tomorrow.
Yep. And so Jeff is out, pretty lopsided vote there. So the question now is like, do they continue to pick off Jeff's people? Are Amy and Pumpkin now in danger, or this is a very schemy bunch. Is there going to be a new target?
I don't know, because shout out to Jeannie. Okay. From way back from the Tony days, this lady is a monster. Okay. So when Tony goes, Jeannie's like, Tony, no. Like, we're like, oh, Jeannie's with the moms. She does not hesitate to vote out Rose, the first mom that goes. Amy calls it out, I think, in the second episode. She's like, wasn't Jeannie with the mom squad? Isn't it crazy that she didn't vote with them? Jeannie seemed to be pretty good with Jeff, and Jeannie made sure to cut Jeff's throat. So I don't know. Maybe if you're somebody like Jeannie who's been seen as duplicitous or that you can't rely on her vote, maybe that's somebody you push. Like, can we really trust Jeannie? She'll backstab Jeff and Rose. Maybe she'll backstab all of y'all. There might be another way to push this onto somebody else. But if I'm Pumpkin or Amy here, I'm a little nervous, like I don't know how it feels because you had to publicly raise your hand with Jeff. And I just think when Jeff's hand goes up, you look at the look on his face because he's realizing I don't have the numbers. I'm gone. And honestly, it was Jeannie who threw his name out. Did you catch that? Jeff's like, yeah, I want Dennis out. He been lying. And Jeannie's like, well, Jeff, I actually been here and it was you. I said, Jeannie.
She's like, I like Dennis. I think he's telling the truth because Dennis was like, I was never coming after you, Jeff.
Yeah. And everybody's like, yep, you're right. I was like, Jeff, I feel like all these people are lying to you. Like they know that Dennis is lying to you as well. Everybody's
being gaslit because I think the argument there is I wasn't coming for you until I heard you were coming for me, which is not true as far as we've been told.
This is like what is it, the Andy Herron double elimination in Big Brother, right? Where it's like, no, I promise it was them. They voted for you. Just ask Gina Maria. Gina Maria's like, yeah, whatever Andy says. And he's like, ask Spencer. Yeah, whatever Andy said. It's like, see, I got all this proof. Don't you believe me? It's like, well, I mean, where else am I gonna go? Everybody else is telling me that I'm tripping. What do I do here? This was the same. Everywhere Dennis, everywhere Jeff turns for more numbers, they're all in on it. So there's like, oh yeah, Dennis, he sucks. He's the worst. You should definitely say his name. I hope that works out. I'll vote with you. And then the moment Jeff's hand goes up, it's just crickets. And I think it ends up like a 3-8 vote or something like that. Mm-hmm. Jeff's cooked. What did you think about Manu holding tribal council? Like he sits down like,
you went hard.
What was that about? Where did that come from?
Yeah, he's like he's like Jeff on steroids in many ways. It's like he was like digging in deep, like, oh, what do you think about? How do you feel about being left behind? Do you think that puts a target on your back? Like,
yeah, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect for him to have such a a hands-on I guess role in the game, because normally he just shows up and tells us what the Mountain Keeper is thinking, or he tells them like, you're not moving fast enough, you're not moving slow enough. But he got in the middle of them and sat down like, all right, let's talk. Why are we getting rid of Jeff again? And it's like, hey, air it out now, because if you don't, and that's the other thing, they don't have to make formal nominations. Manu says, who are you thinking, Jeannie? And she's like, I don't know. I've kind of been thinking Jeff. All right, so Jeff, you're up. Whoa, hold on, slow down. I don't think she said that. Slow down. I like it. I like it a lot. I do. I want Manu to put pressure on these people. Make them make a decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, anything else from this episode, Chappell?
Do we know what happens in the event that there's a tie or something like that? Like, is there like do we have a mechanism for something like that? Because right now, like you said, people are incentivized to really go with the numbers. But let's say you have a Dennis versus Nick or something like that, or Becky Lee versus Dennis, and people are having to choose between these two strategy-minded people. What does it look like when there's potential for this to be a hung jury?
I think if it's a tie, it should be who gets to the next checkpoint first next time.
So like, all right, you can sleep tonight, but tomorrow you're on the block.
Just like, a full-on race to the next checkpoint. Whoever gets there last between the two of them is out.
I can see something like that. I really want there to be, bigger stakes for people to want to break rank. I think that here, once Pumpkin and Amy see that Jeff is going, they could have easily just left Jeff hanging. They didn't, but they could have easily been like, woo.
I mean, that's basically what Robert did, right?
Oh yeah, Robert was like, I'm gonna oh no, never mind, never mind that. But I'm like, okay, what if you could have tied the vote? Is there any world where it would even make sense to do that, or are you just like all right, now Jeff's safe, Amy's safe, no, Dennis
maybe Manu breaks the tie.
Yeah, Manu's like, I don't like Jeff.
I want you to both. I want you to both pitch your cases to me.
Yeah, he sits back. Excellent. Give me more of that. I want to know more about how like the voting works. But aside from that, I'm excited. 3 episodes in, I think we got a decent groundwork for what could be an amazing show. And I would love to see, like, obviously, once the production people listen to all of our amazing, like, here's some pointers here and there, some tweaks that you can make. Season 2 be incredible. It's gonna be wild once they start really just murdering people out here in the wilderness. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think right now what I'm looking forward to is just more of these moments of like fun, campy stuff happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's still potential. It's still worth like watching for just for those moments, even if I think there are things that could be maybe improved along the way. But I'm hopeful that because this episode was a little bit sleepier, that means that next episode is going to have another big dramatic thing that they do. So we'll see.
Yes. What I feel like they should go through some water. There's water. Like, I feel like that should be a thing. I don't know, man.
It's
I don't
hard.
know. Yeah. I need that. I need more of
Yeah.
that. But I'm excited.
All right. Well, that is what we have for you then this week. We'll, of course, be back next week to talk about episode 4 of The Summit. Stay tuned for that. WeKnowTheSummit.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's because we know it.
We do. We do. We know the summit. And this is where you go to get all your summit information. Now, we're asking a lot of questions, but how are you going to get those answers if you're not tuned in here and subscribe to the podcast feed? WeKnowTheSummit.com right here on RealityTV.com. Check that out. And then make sure you tune in every week to hear what Taran and I have to say about this amazing show.
Here's the key. If you are a subscriber of We Know the Summit, all of a sudden, you know the summit too.
We all know the
You
summit.
become part of the we.
Don't you want to be part of the we? Or do you want to be Jeff? Do you want to be Bo?
Don't be Bo.
Don't be Bo.
Yeah. Of course, stay tuned for all of the other coverage we got going on. Big Brother is, Big Brother, Circle, jet lag. They're all ending over, but there's plenty of stuff you can check out. Survivor's still going. And you can always find me over on Twitch as well, hanging out, talking about shows and scripted stuff. We know scripted TV. We're talking about stuff over there as well. Tastemakers podcast. So check it all out. Chappell, how about you?
You can catch me on recapkickback.com or on our YouTube page, youtube.com/@recapkickback, where Mari and I are talking about Black entertainment news every week. It's spooky season. So we're talking about some spooky content over there. We had Matt Scott on 2 weeks in a row to talk about the Hulu show, How to Die Alone. That was a couple weeks ago. That was great. And so check that out. And then, of course, check out our The Walking Dead coverage on Recap Kickback as well. Myself, AJ Mass, Jessica Leese, and Josh Wigler covering The Walking Dead on the Zombie Kickback on Recap Kickback. Check it out and subscribe and follow me on Twitter and all social media platforms @Recap Kickback.
All right. Well, that is what we have for you then today. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see all of you next time.